If you are a Resto Druid and looking to finally get ahead of the curve, hold tight. In this guide, I'm going to go over everything you need to know when it comes to healing Sylvanas. From how to properly use your CDs, to even the smallest details, such as how much mana you should have at the end of each phase, how to use your convokes, and so much more. First off, phase 1. In phase 1, your main focus should be on the Vindrano mechanic and the chain mechanic. CD-wise, it's kind of weird, because it depends on the DPS, but the main thing is you want to make sure you have 3 of life for the intermission. At start, you can see me, I'm doing DPS. On progress, I had a chance to also 3 of life and heal those people with the shadow daggers, but as we've gotten to the point where we are getting to intermission, at like 2 minutes 30, I no longer can afford to use 2 3 of lives in phase 1. From there on, some interesting tips about phase 1. You should apply only roughly 1 efflorescence per every single intermission in the small intermissions in phase 1 that happens that are split with the veils. So what happens is the veil happens, then you have Vindrano mechanic, and then you have arrows, and then again veil, Vindrano, arrows, and so on and so on. So you can see I'm going to reapply efflorescence fairly soon, and if you can use tranquility here, but I decided not to, just to hold it for the safety of it, in case we need it in the intermission, as we still have Ashen, so healing shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, in phase 1, your main goal should be on simply just healing the people who have either a large amount of barbed arrow stacks, so you can see I have 1 right now, or people who get the Shadow Dagger debuff during the Vindrano mechanic, or are getting chained for too long. But again, you can see I'm not reapplying my efflorescence, just simply waiting it out, waiting for the veil to happen, and then once this veil is over, I'm going to reapply efflorescence. One big mistake I did, I used only a single potion during like a 12-minute fight. You can easily fit 3, so just use 1 at the start of phase 1, then around the start of phase 2, and then anywhere in phase 3. In phase 3 you can probably also get a stronger potion. You can see that I'm using my 3 of life on this last Vindrano that's going to be chaining into intermission soon, and now we have 2 sets of arrows, so the 3 of life is mainly to stabilize everyone, and then I can use also the remaining of it to spot heal people who got unlucky and have chains in like Africa. And so the way chains work are, the longer you are chained, the more you have the stacking dot. So at the end, if you are very unlucky with your chain and it's like completely off to the side, it can be very, very scary to actually survive, and you should use the defensive. But in phase 1 is mostly kind of just figuring the cities out yourself, your convokes and flourishes. Just make sure you get 3 of life for the intermission. In phase 2 and phase 3 it becomes, I can help you a lot more, because it becomes a lot more consistent in terms of how the timings end up working out. At the end of phase 1 you want to have like 50% mana, or if you have like mana tight at the start of Hymn of Hope, you can go even lower. But yeah, in this case there wasn't too much damage, so I didn't have to heal that much. Okay, so to talk about phase 2 before we get to the hard part themselves, these platforms are very easy. This is the first platform, you simply just dodge the waves, nothing important. Second platform, you want to use basically all your CDs there, and the reason you want to do it is because then on the 5th platform, which is a scary platform, you want to make sure you have your all CDs back, except Tranquility, which you want to use twice in phase 3 as well. So what you see me I'm going to do is I'm going to use Convoke, Flourish and Tranquility. The Tranquility is going to be kind of wasted, as we have a lot of DPS, but on progress what you should do instead is use a offensive Convoke. And you can see I have a Vikora that tells me how many Flourishes, how many Convokes I have used. It's on the Vikora of the Convoke. So right now I can see I used 3, and I got Flourish from this Convoke. This is very important because this depends. If you get a special ability from this Convoke, it changes how you want to use your next Convoke. If you get a special, you want to use your next Convoke off cooldown, if it's the 4th one, So you reset the deck and you have a chance to get Foolish on the Scary platform. That's the 5th one. If you don't get if it's your 3rd Convoke and you don't get a special, that means your next Convoke has a very high chance to use Foolish. You want to hold Foolish for like almost 2 minutes and just use it during Tree of Life use it in Tree of Life during the Scary platform. This platform is very simple to heal. Only thing you have to worry about is the Soul Judge debuff. You can see Crushing Gaze, I think it's called, or something like that. It's now on 2 targets, and it stacks up, and once you dispel it, it spreads to, I think, 2 people. And at this point, we are just killing the Soul Judge guy, like, so fast, it doesn't matter. But you want to dispel the dot when it goes to, like, 5 stacks, if they don't use any defensives. Or if you see they use some heavy defensives, you can maybe take it to, like, 8 or even 10 sometimes. But don't be too greedy. This platform, a lot of people you see taking damage is actually fake. It's by the wave. That should not happen to you. It just happened because we had high DPS. So most of the people who got hit by some mechanic was avoidable mechanic. So this is not how this Scary platform looks. It's much less threatening. It's basically just the orbs and some of the debuff, but it's really not a big deal. This is where one of my biggest mistakes happened, and it almost cost us Battle S. Right now I should have already started channeling my orb, and I ended up doing it during Tree of Life. And then you want to Tree of Life as you're running across the bridge to already start ramping heavily. And now you would want to Convoke. I obviously messed up and used orb. So now you can see I'm using Convoke right into Foolish, and then just going spamming some regrowths to make sure nobody dies to any of the dots. And if I see everyone is like kind of stabilized, I'm not going to use regrowths and reduce instead. This is one of the parts where regrowth spamming is very useful. You can use it to kind of spot heal and stabilize the whole group. So the rest of your like hordes, like Spring Blossoms, Vow Growth, Rejuves can stabilize and regrowth to spot heal. Right now I would not recommend using Convoke. Even if you get it, just save it for the last phase. Again, as you can see, it's not even a big deal if you don't miss the Foolish on the 5th Convoke, as that sometimes can happen, but I'm going to get it on a very good spot. Well, should get it if I don't lose the chance, on a very good spot in phase 3. At this phase you want to be at like 50% mana. I ended up being a lot lower because I messed up a few things of like overcasting Rejuves or just healing where it wasn't needed. But you can easily be above 50% mana, even if you just hard heal the Scary platform. In phase 3, I would recommend you use Tranquility or Convoke. If you know your Convoke and Foolish, this was my fault. I should have used Convoke instead on this Banshee's Fury because I know it is almost guaranteed to Foolish, and then use Tranquility on the next one. So what I ended up doing instead is doing it the other way around, where I could have saved some HPS for myself. On these platforms, there's almost no healing. The main healing you should worry about is the Veil, which happens right now. It's a debuff that spreads to everyone and absorbs some healing. You want to make sure you out-heal this really soon. And then it's Banshee's Fury and Veiling Arrows. Banshee's Fury is not that scary. Only thing you need to know is if anyone has any stacks after the Banshee's Fury ends, it's basically going to one-shot the whole raid. So you need to make sure maybe if somebody picks up on accident, you dispel them just before the end of Banshee's Fury. Now you can see I Convoke and got Foolish out of it, so that was my 6th one. I didn't use my own Foolish because I want to make sure I have a Tree of Life, as I do want to Tree of Life on the next platform because we don't have Lust. In the case where you have Lust for this exact moment, I would recommend you do not use Tree of Life, because you would go so fast, like you would be just surprised how fast you can go during if you pair Tree of Life and Lust. On the other hand, if there would be like some insane healing check, pairing Tree of Life with Lust is completely insane, and is basically makes the whole raid immune. So you can see now I'm just ramping and going to use Foolish once this Banshee's Fury starts hitting, right after the Vow Growth. And then I'm going to use Convoke basically off CD to start preparing for the arrows that are going to be happening in roughly 5 seconds. yeah, there's not that much to phase 3. I'm just trying to talk some of my thoughts. I would just recommend you maybe rewatch some parts if you are not sure or if I skipped something, perhaps. But yeah, mana-wise, right now I'm kind of wasting mana, so that was a mistake on my end. As sometimes you just get so lost in what's actually happening that it becomes scary. Also, now I see a race is going to happen, so I do not reapply my Efflorescence. And I see that the mage on accident picked up, so I'm just going to dispel him before we jump over to make sure we go on this platform super clean and we have more than enough space to spread. So again, Banshee's Fury coming. For this one, you can maybe 3 of life if you didn't use it on the before, in the last one. And then it kind of depends on your last. You can see on these arrows, I think I'm going to Convoke, so I get it once more later on. And I know I can't get footage from this, so it's just like a whim Convoke for the growth invigoration buff from Naya. Then, again, Tranquility, if you see, I used it earlier in phase 3, but even if I used it on the second Banshee Fury, I would still easily get it at the end of the fight. One thing I do want to mention is, once this platform is over, that's in like 20 seconds. Actually, first off, if you get the Banshee's Veil, and there are some pools and there's not enough space, just don't be afraid to walk into them, and so you give more space to everyone else, and then you just dispel yourself once it's over. On this next platform, we finish it early, like very early on. But what I would recommend you do here instead is save your Convoke and Flourish, not for these arrows, because you don't have your Convoke yet, but save it for the 6th Banshee's Fury instead. As right now I kind of whim my Flourish before the Convoke, to kind of recover from the arrows, and then late Convoke, and this Convoke does basically 0 healing because we are top from everything else. But yeah, that's it for Sylvanas. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below, and see you in the next one.